guys, Gons here for the Face Like the Sun YouTube channel. If you haven't heard already, on the 22nd of April, a volcano erupted in Chile, and on the Daily Mail it reports a volcano in Chile that has laid dormant for more than 40 years has suddenly erupted, causing a thick plume of ash to cloud the sky while thousands of people living in its shadow were forced to flee. Volcano Calbuco in the country's south is believed to be among the 3 most dangerous of Chile's 90 active volcanoes, but was not under any special observation before it suddenly sprung into life around 6 p.m. local time. An estimated 1,500 people were forced to flee the nearby town of Ensenada after the eruption, while several smaller townships were also cleared. And here's some photos of the eruption, and you can see, I mean, it's pretty scary looking. I mean, it is what it is. It's a volcano. It's erupting. I'm sure it looked quite terrifying at night with the lightning and everything happening there. Here's some more photos, just going through them. But I'd like to bring your attention to 4 photos in particular that people are saying depicts the angel of death. Now, let me go through them real quick. Here we got the first one. I raised the contrast on these so you can see it a little bit better, but here you see the face and what looks like a body and maybe a leg that's sort of walking. Here's another one. This one has kind of like the Cyclops eye thing going. There's another one. This one's pretty pixelated. It's a pretty small image, but you can see the face and the body. And then here's another one. Again, a face, kind of a body, and what looks like a leg. Now, if you recall the 9/11 event, people said that, you know, you can see demon faces and stuff in the clouds, in the smoke and stuff like that. And I'm not doubting that there are perhaps spiritual entities that may be released or something from the depths of the earth, perhaps the core of the earth in some way. But in terms of seeing things, this is a really, really good example of pareidolia, which is a psychological phenomenon involving a vague and random stimulus, usually an image or a sound, being perceived as significant. So, you know, for example, if you ever do like cloud watching, you know, just looking at clouds, sometimes you see shapes and the human mind will create shapes out of them. And we've seen this with, you know, images of Jesus on tortillas and stuff like that. So this is not an uncommon phenomenon. So while it's interesting, I don't know that there's anything necessarily significant. But at the same time, I'm not dismissing the possibility that there are spiritual entities that are released in such events like volcanoes erupting. But that's just speculation. There's no way for me to prove it. There's no way for me to verify that spiritual entities did get released in this Chilean volcanic eruption. But I would like to share a few verses from the Bible that talk about God's power, and it's usually exemplified by earthquakes and even volcano eruptions. And then we'll look at a couple scriptures that talk about these sorts of events as part of end times prophecy. First, you have Nahum 1:5, where it says, "The mountains quake before him, the hills melt, the earth heaves before him, the world and all who dwell in it." And this idea of the hills melting is likely representing the volcanoes erupting and basically the mountain or hill melting, which makes sense. Then you have Exodus 20, verse 18, where it says, "Now when all the people saw the thunder and the flashes of lightning and the sound of the trumpet and the mountain smoking, the people were afraid and trembled, and they stood far off." Now in this instance, it's interesting because this is right after the 10 Commandments were given to Moses. And it's funny because Moses approaches the smoke. And so this is where we can be highly speculative, but still speculate that there's something to do with mountains and volcanoes erupting and, you know, flashes of lightning and smoke and all this stuff having to do something with some sort of spiritual opening. Now, obviously, when God shows up on Mount Sinai, similar events were happening, you know, smoke, lightning, all kinds of stuff. Maybe not lava, but the people stood at a distance because the clouds were thick and there was lightning flashing and loud sounds, mountains smoking and all this stuff. So that's why when we see volcanoes, you know, obviously it's a pretty awe-inspiring thing to look at because it's so powerful. You know, it just shows the power of the earth and subsequently the power of God, because God is in control of creation and this is his creation that we're watching. So pretty interesting stuff to consider. And if we go back a chapter, we see Moses here again in Exodus 19:18, where it says, "Now Mount Sinai was wrapped in smoke because the Lord had descended on it in fire. The smoke of it went up like a smoke of a kiln, and the whole mountain trembled greatly." This is really interesting. Is there like a volcano eruption when God comes down? It's possible. I mean, it sounds like the effects are very similar. I'm not saying that God's showing up or any entities are showing up when volcanoes go off, but it is interesting to consider. And let me give you one more passage that comes from Revelation 6. Now, obviously, there can be more stuff that I can get into, but for the sake of time, I'm just going to keep it short here. When the sixth seal is opened, there was a great earthquake, and the sun became black as sackcloth, and the moon became like blood, and the stars of the sky fell to the earth as the fig tree shed its winter fruit when shaken by a gale. The sky vanished like a scroll that is being rolled up, and every mountain and island was removed from its place. Now, this is interesting, that every mountain and island was removed here during the opening of the sixth seal. I think this is where the veil between heaven and earth is actually torn apart. It says the sky vanished like a scroll being rolled up, and the mountain and islands removed. I think this is pretty catastrophic, and I think it's pretty significant because after this point, we see, in my opinion, the rapture of the church is after this. This is after the tribulation. This is after the Antichrist is revealed. He goes through all his stuff. It's after the wrath of Satan, and then the wrath of God is about to begin. The day of the Lord is here. And I think that's the return of Jesus Christ. And then afterwards, you see the 7 trumpets and the 7 bowls, and those are part of the judgment of earth. And then it's not till the end of that we see the restoration of a new heaven and a new earth. So I think it's the beginning right there when Jesus returns is this tearing open of the veil between heaven and earth. And I think that's when things get really, really, really ugly on earth. And part of it is going to be mountains being moved out of the way. And perhaps watching a volcano eruption like this is just, a reminder that this event described in Revelation 6 and beyond are far more terrifying than a volcano going off. So just some food for thought there. Just wanted to give you guys some thoughts on volcanoes and eruptions and mountains and stuff as part of biblical prophecy, as well as a display of God's sovereignty and power. So hope you guys got something out of this. I know it was a little short and not terribly informative, just some opinions and some Bible passages and a look at the Chile volcano using the opportunity to dive into scripture. So hope you guys have a good day. God bless.